It's officially the spring, and college coaches are going to be visiting your son's school. And so, in this podcast, we're going to be breaking down how to handle coaches coming to your school, how to communicate with them, how to build relationships with them, how to get their contact information to ultimately turn these visits into scholarship offers. You're listening to the Football Scholarship Podcast, the playbook for parents and athletes who want to secure the best football scholarships possible. From securing a D1 football scholarship in the SEC at Ole Miss at just £5,700 myself, to helping 83% of the athletes I mentor achieve football scholarship offers and 42% going Division I. I've learned countless lessons that I'll be sharing right here with you. Join me and my co-host Brian Overton, who has 15 years of D1 college football recruiting experience, as we interview top experts, successful athletes, and discuss current recruiting trends. Together, we'll help you navigate the recruiting process so you too can achieve your dream of running out of that tunnel in front of 100,000 screaming fans. And joining me today is our head coach here at Next Play, Brian Overton, who has over 15 years of Division I recruiting experience. Brian, what's up, man? Glad to have you here on the podcast.
Yeah, man. Talking about important time of the year, so I wanted to make sure we have these guys prepared when the coaches start hitting the road here. They're already out and
This
about.
is it. I
So
saw your picture today, your post today of you on an airplane at one point when you were traveling and on your little
yeah,
private jet. So all these coaches are traveling around right now, and they're coming to a school near you. They're coming to your school. And so really preparing for this opportunity for coaches coming to your school and getting your son prepped up on how he needs to, to make sure he gets in front of these coaches when they do visit, what to say to them, how to build a relationship with them, and what to do after to really continue that conversation. There's a lot that you can do here. And I will tell you this, and just, obviously so many players miss this opportunity to build a relationship with the coach and to move the process forward. And so we're going to really be breaking down a lot of what we teach our guys and the players that we mentor and how they're able to turn spring visits into scholarship offers. So Brian, where do you want to even start with this, man? So much. Actually, you know where I want to start?
yeah.
Let's start, if it's okay with you. Let's start with you. And you were going on these visits, right? And you were going to high schools. What was your agenda when you were going through?
Right. Yeah, that's a good question. So when coaches go out, guys, it's usually broken down into weeks. You know what I mean? They'll meet well ahead of time, and they usually do it. They map it out a week at the time. So obviously, you've got 10 assistant coaches. Head coaches cannot go out in the spring, so that's one thing we can put out there. You will not see any, not Division I head coaches. You won't see any of those head coaches out in the spring. They can't go out in the spring. It's been like that for quite a while. So it'll be all assistant coaches. So you've got 10 assistant coaches going out. They set their schedules up individually, and we've talked a lot about area coaches, you know what I mean, and other podcasts and things like that. So they're definitely going to go out and hit their area. So and that may be early on, it may be later in the process. They may do some position recruiting first and then hit their area, or vice versa. But at some point in time, they're going to get around to their area schools. Um, but in a nutshell, when I would go out, I would have my weekly schedule done, and let's just say, I'm hitting my area, whatever area, that I was assigned. And, I would just map out my schools, by geographic region, depending on the day and how far apart they were. I was, every coach is different. I mean, the old school guys that were brought up in the business, like when I was, that I learned from, they didn't want a lot of wasted time. So if you were only hitting like 3 or 4 schools a day, you were doing it wrong. So if I possibly could, I tried to hit 6, 7 schools a day, depending on the kid and what I wanted to see him do and things like that. So my point is, they're going to have a general idea of the kids. They'll have a list of kids, however they accumulate that, whether it's through talking to head coaches or any kind of softwares they may use. And when I say softwares, I'm not talking about recruiting softwares. I'm talking about like information gathering
Yeah.
softwares, that people do on just prospects at schools and things like that. So they'll have a general idea of who the players are that they need to ask about. And then, I just stop by the school. I'd always meet with the head coach, and talk about those guys. And I'd always want to, kind of, see them in person. They changed the rules a while back. You used to, during this period, you used to couldn't, make any in-person contact. Now, I think depending on the school year, the grad year or whatever, you can a couple times. But in any case, I would always, no matter if I was talking to them face to face or just saw them in gym class, or whatever the case may be, they're going to always want to see you in person. So I would do that. And then I just, work my way through the schools. I always tried to, prioritize guys, that were a little bit higher on my board. To try to go there in the afternoon, evening, so I could either watch them do spring practice, or if they had a track meet going on, I could watch them run track, or do something after school like that, and really get a good feel for them and watch them move around. But it was always good just to be able to see them, and then sometimes you got to see them in the weight room. And then I can get into all the other things I've talked about other times on the podcast, different people I would talk to in the school while I
Yeah.
was there to get a character
So would
evaluation as
you
well.
would your
So
goal, like, obviously, like you said, I think that makes sense of like, hey, the guys I really like, the higher guys on the board, you wanted to go later so you had a better opportunity to watch them, like whether if they were at spring practice or like you said, track.
right.
Um, the when you would go to the schools earlier in the day, would you have like
Yep.
scheduled meetings with specific players? Like how would you go about doing that?
No, not most of the time because there's no way to gather all their schedules. You know what I mean ahead of time. All of them are different the way the schools are set up and stuff like that. What I did was I just kind of let what I if you're to me if you're doing it right, every coach is different. Some of them are sloppy, some of them are organized. What I tried to do is the day before. So if I recruited all day Monday, I'll just give you an example, and got to the hotel Monday night, or Monday evening. That evening, I would call the head coaches at the schools. I was stopping by the next day, and say, "Hey, coach, this is my schedule. This is what time I hope I'll be, getting by there based on my schedule. You know what I mean?" And I would, if possible, I would like to put my eyes on, Johnny, Chris, and Jacob. You know what I mean? At some point, whatever they have going on in that time frame. You know what I mean? So I would set it up with the head coach, and he would have a general idea of when I'm supposed to be there. And when I would leave the school ahead of them, I would call him again and say, "Coach, hey, I'm on my way." You know what I mean? So he could try to be as prepared as possible. And then based on that, they typically make it work. You've got some really strenuous academic schools where they're a little funny about you getting them out of class and stuff like that. But for the most part, if it's for recruiting and they know it's helping the kid, they'll even like pull them out of class for 5 or 10, 15 minutes so you can see them, or you know what I mean. If even when the rules weren't, you couldn't see them, you were still going to see them. So you'd pull them out and get a chance to talk to them. So that's kind of how you
Yeah.
set it up from school to
And
school.
obviously, like, we're going to be talking about like what the player needs to do and what the player's goal is. But
Yeah,
what's the coach's goal from with these visits? Like when they leave a school,
yeah.
h- how do they know if it was a success or not?
Yeah. So the goal in the spring evaluation period is more so to kind of one is to check boxes on kids that you hadn't been able to be around much. So it depends on the kid's situation. Like if you hadn't had him on campus very or at all, let's say, is to get around people that have been around him, do a little bit more of a character reference, you know what I'm saying, and check more boxes on that side of it. Let's say you have had him on campus and you've got to spend some time with him and his family, and you feel okay about his character and who he is as a kid and all that stuff. Well, then you're probably going to want to see more of like a weight room session or something, him doing something athletically, you know what I mean, and things like that. So that kind of depends on, the status of the kid and, kind of where he's at. But if you walk out of there, if you walk out of the school, and one of the biggest is, and we talk about it all the time, some of the biggest things are, especially like I said, if they hadn't been on campus, and that's more people than not. More people are not going to have been on your campus than have. Is verifying like height, weight on the, just ballparking it on the hoof. If you really want to get a athletic eval, it's about how well he moves around out there at practice or at the track meet. I've worked with coaches every spot I've been. There's been a handful of coaches on the staff where we bought those little handheld video cameras and they go video it. And they'd bring it all back and put it in this video library. He'd video him out there running around. He'd video him standing beside the measuring tape in the office. Like, it's a lot of boxes you're trying to check. And whatever you're going in there for, based on where the kid's at in the situation, if you got them all checked off, you know what I mean. You feel like it was a good visit. And for the most part, if they give you access to the kid, you can get whatever you
Can
need.
you really do that? You can height and weight somebody pretty accurate. I know you do it on film, which is pretty wild, but in person, just up front, you're like 6'2", 6 foot.
Absolutely.
Really?
And it's like I said, like I talked about. I don't know if it was on a live eval or a podcast. The way guys do that, you know what I mean, I'll talk about it now. I was going to talk about it later, but the way guys do that is that's why I say, some of those pictures, even when they were in the contact period, before, and you see the kids posting, thanks coach for stopping by, and they're standing there hugging the coach. Well, I did that all the time. Sometimes I would ask for the picture, like me, the coach, because I know that I was right at 6 feet tall. Well, the best measuring stick is for the kid to stand right
Yeah.
beside
But
me.
how do you know if his feet were
You know,
together, or if he had big shoes on?
It's not an exact science like that. I can tell you to pretty good
Yeah,
accuracy
yeah,
that, like, if he took his shoes off, minus an inch, like I said, I get on these guys all the time. An
yeah,
inch is that much. That's not going to be the difference in us offering
yeah.
or not. Um, but it may be the difference in if he said he was 6'4", you know what I'm saying, and he's standing beside me and he's about, an inch taller than me. One, he 100% lied about how tall
And
he
wow.
was, and now he's about six
Yeah.
one. He's 6'1". He's not 6'4", and that's a big problem. That's 3 inches. So stuff like that is the measuring stick. And then I can't say it enough, and I know we're going to get into what the kids need to do to prepare and all that, but never take for granted who a coach is going to talk to about you in that school. I cannot say that enough. They're going to talk to the person, the guys that do if they're serious about you, and the guys that are thorough, they're going to talk to the people that you think can help you the least
Mm.
in
Yeah.
recruiting.
Lunch lady.
And that's something that was my go-to. Everybody's got theirs. You know what I mean? I've been in schools with coaches. Sometimes they're not going in there by themselves. Sometimes there's multiple coaches going into school, and one person's doing one thing while the other's doing the other. I've worked with coaches that wanted the class schedule, and a lot of kids and the head coach think it's because they want to look at their grades and all that stuff. They want to see who some random teacher's name is, and they go down to the office and they say, "Hey, where's Richie's classroom at? I just want to stop by and say hello. I'm recruiting, one of his students." And he'll just go knock on the door and interrupt the class for 5 minutes, pull him out in the hall and say, "Hey, what do you think about this kid? What do you think about Richie? I was just curious. How's he doing in your class? Is he throwing paper balls at everybody? And is he disruptive? Is he cursing walking up and down the hallway? Is he disrespectful to the girl? You know what I'm saying? They're looking for that random teacher that's teaching you like Spanish that you hate probably, that you think cannot hurt you at all or help you in recruiting. They're going to talk to that lady.
Mm.
You know, and that's something that gets so overlooked, man. I'm telling you, and I can't tell you how many meetings I've been sitting in because everybody comes back and because the portal's open, so everybody comes back in on Friday because you typically got something going on the weekend, and you meet on all this stuff, and you go coach by coach, and it never fails. It comes up, hey man, I was in so and so school, and I talked to a teacher, I talked to this person, we better, maybe put a red dot on his tag, as a character reference and be careful with this kid. If it comes right down to it, we like a guy equally talent wise, we may want to take the other guy.
Mm. Mm. What was
And that'll never come
how
out
did
like that. Nobody will ever
yeah.
see that. Like all the newspaper guys in his hometown, they'll be raving about him. He's a great, but and they don't ever see those small things because they're not in that classroom. You
Mhm.
know what I mean? So everybody on the surface thinks everything's nice and smooth.
What's one of the craziest things that you asked like a teacher or a lunch lady or something and you found out and you're like, this dude's off the board, gone.
Probably, we really like this kid, and I won't even say what school I was at. But we really liked this kid talent wise. I mean, he was super talented. He was. Obviously, we wouldn't have been recruiting him that hard if he wasn't. And we had him on campus a couple of times, and he was great, man. He came with his parents, and the whole 9 yards. We really liked the family, liked the kid, yes sir, no sir, the whole 9 yards. So I was excited, to get by his school. Was heading into his senior year, so we were right in the thick of it. You know what I mean? And he was. We had offered him already, like he had an offer already, and we were just kind of doing our due diligence, stopping by to see him. And I did my whole little gimmick, and I went in and I asked the coach to take me down to the lunchroom. It was right before lunch. I tried not to bother them when they were like in the mix of lunch,
Yeah.
serving lunch. And I just popped in there, and this lady was probably, she wasn't an older lady, but she was probably in her, her early 50s, late 40s, early 50s, and I just kind of pulled her to the side. And I asked her about some guys that we were not interested in, but were playing there that were pretty good players. They just weren't good enough for us. So I started with those guys. And I think I asked about three guys, including the guy I'm talking about, and I started with the other two guys, and they were like, "Yeah, he comes through here, he seems like a pretty nice kid." And this was a very open lunchroom, so it wasn't like a separate line, like where they got the food and where the kids sat, like you could see
Yeah.
everything, like you know what I'm saying. And they were like, "Yeah, they seem to be really nice kids, coming through, and this, that, and other." And then I asked about that kid, and she was kind of like, did the little, I don't know if I really want to talk about him type face. You can
Yeah.
tell immediately when I said his name. And I was like, wow, that was a totally different reaction, from the other two guys. I was like, why is that? And she was like, well, coach, if I'm being quite honest with you, I mean, there's been a couple times, several times. She didn't say a couple, she said several. She said there's been several times, he's been coming, through the line, and he's got a really bad language, he curses a lot. It seems like, he's trying to be like the life of the party. And then I heard him talking to some females and saying some things, I mean, just some words that I wouldn't want anybody to say to my daughter, even in a joking manner. He wasn't being like disrespectful to them, so to speak, and the girl didn't take it that way. But like, and she said I heard it, a couple times, and he's kind of like, kind of rowdy, kind of like the, all eyes on me type guy when he's sitting around at the table. So, and that just struck me the wrong way as soon as she said something about, the way, just the language he was using with some females and stuff like that,
That'll get you in trouble, man.
yeah. And even like I said, and I asked her, I said, was he being disrespectful to him? She said, not blatantly, but I wouldn't want anybody to even have a conversation like that around my daughter, even if they weren't intentionally being disrespectful. And when she said that, it was over.
Damn.
It was over. I didn't care how good he was. I didn't care that he was just so nurser when he was on our campus. I didn't care how nice his parents were, because there was a different part of him behind the scenes that nobody
Yeah.
saw, and except the person that he thought could not hurt them
Mm.
in recruiting.
So this is a lesson, guys. If you're listening, parents, share this with your son.
Yeah, yeah.
uh,
The person you least think can hurt you.
well, to me, it goes back to, your character isn't what you do when everyone's watching. It's what you do when no one's watching.
No doubt.
Who are you? Are you what type of person are you? You know what I mean? This isn't even a football recruiting topic, to be honest. This is are you a
No
good
doubt.
person? You know what I mean?
No
And
doubt.
so, look, like if you want to be successful in recruiting, I mean, can you fake it for a certain period of time? Sure, but at the end of the day, it's always going to come through. Who you are is always going to come through. And so, focusing on yourself and becoming a better person and having better character and integrity, and these are all things that are really important. And the more that this is ingrained in you and who you are, the more successful you'll be in recruiting, because you could be yourself. You're not trying to hide stuff.
Yeah.
So I hope,
Yeah.
if you're a parent and you share this with your son, just, you know, taking this from a sense who, of working on yourself and being a good person, with who has integrity and good character, and what you do when nobody's watching and not when someone's watching is critical in the recruiting process, because coaches are going to find out. You know what I mean? You might be able to fake it for a period of time, but eventually they're going to find out, and you're going to get yourself in a bad situation. So we'll move on from that, but I think that's an important, at least a
Yeah.
lesson to take away. So
That's a big piece of the spring evaluation
yeah,
period.
exactly. So, because
Yeah.
like tape is tape, right?
Yeah.
Fall, it's football, it's tape, and then it's like, okay, well, character, person, integrity. Is he gonna stick around?
Yeah.
Is he gonna Nico you? Is he gonna, what are all are you gonna get
Is he going to
Nicoed?
have us
You
in
know
the
what I mean?
newspaper? Is the biggest one. Is he going to have us on the front page of the newspaper? Is the biggest
Yeah.
one.
Well, we can have fun with that top conversation for sure. I'm sure we
Yeah,
will actually.
that'd be bad.
But let's talk about some of the things these guys can do, right? Like, let's talk about, some of the things that we teach,
Yeah.
and it's really important is when a coach, anytime you have the opportunity to meet with a coach face to face, it is critical. It is important. It's it's critical. I don't know any other word to say it, but critical, right?
Yeah.
And they're at your school, you're in front of them face to face. This is the game time, right? This is game time, right? And so I'll knock through a couple things, Brian, and then we'll kind of break it down together. But I want to share at the very top, right? Like the way you carry yourself, your body language, shoulders back, right? Chest up, walking with confidence. Like these are minor little things, but these are all things that add up to a coach's perspective of who you are, right? Hunched over, looking up like this, not being sure of yourself. The coach might not like think to say something about that, but internally it's how they view you, their perspective of you, right? And a lot of times it's subconscious when it comes to your body language and how you carry yourself and how you confidently communicate with them. And these are just a couple little things you can do is really make sure when you're walking, chest up, shoulders back, looking at the coach in his eyes, shaking his hand firmly. Practice with your parents. And if you're a parent listening, practice with your son. Make sure he shakes hand firmly and looks at the coach in his eyes and thanks him for being there and shoulders back. Like these are all really, really important things. And I'll let Brian jump in on that. But real quick, one more thing. If you're a player and a coach it doesn't matter. Have your highlight tape ready to go. You don't need Wi-Fi to view it. Have your phone with you, your iPad with you. You can get a cheap thing on Amazon for $50 that'll play your highlight video. You could upload it to. Have it with you. Have your highlight video accessible, viewable, where you don't need internet, where you could pull it out at any time and have that opportunity to show your coach. And I say this because, Brian, when he was going to schools and when coaches go to schools, they're there to see certain guys. Sometimes your coach will say, "Hey, I also want you to meet so and so," or he might be coming to see you because he heard your name, but he's never seen your highlight video. And the most important thing you could do, if you look at our sales process that we teach, right? It's really straightforward. Area coach, they're obviously there, so that's your guy. The second thing is to get them to watch your video. And you can knock this out in person. And I see this happen all the time, Brian, is they'll have a conversation. The coach has never even watched this kid's highlight video. And then they're never going to hear from this. Even if you're a good kid, like they're never, they got 5 other schools to go to, right? And so,
Yeah.
and just using that moment, you got a couple minutes of hey coach, do you mind if we just take 90 seconds? I just want to show you a little bit of my highlight video and see if there's some potential interest. Boom. You're watching it together. He's giving you feedback. And then you can go to the next step, ask him if there's interest. If there is interest, get his phone number, not his Twitter, his phone number, and then you can keep the conversation going versus losing that coach and never getting a chance to talk to him again. I know there's a lot to unpack
Yeah.
there, but I wanted to really make sure that
No.
that's such a critical part.
Yeah. And I'm gonna retrace a little bit because like our guys, the one up a lot of our guys have, to be honest with you, and this is not fluff. I'm not a fluff guy. I think for the most part, if you listen to any of this stuff, you know that, because I don't need to be. But the advantage a lot of our guys have is because of the way we teach our guys and the just kind of the sequence of the program we take them through. A lot of times our guys have already built relationships with the area coach before he comes to the school.
Yeah.
because of the way we have the outreach structured. You know what I mean? I'm not saying every one of them that comes through there they have a relationship with, but if you can have a relationship with even 3 or 4 of them that come through your school, like you're way ahead of everybody else that he's going to see. And so our guys do a good job of trying to find that area coach, and that's what we've really been harping on them. Once the contact period ended, in the early, in like February, around February. So basically after signing day, we've really been on the guys, especially the younger guys, to find as many area coaches as you possibly can and start, trying to get them on the phone and get feedback on your tape and all those things. Because like Richie just said, if none of that has happened, yes, you can make it happen there. But imagine if you identified that guy early and you've already been on the phone with him and had a conversation with him about your tape, your area
Hmm.
coach. Imagine how good the conversation is going to be now when he shows up to your school and he already knows all that about you and he's already seen all your tape. Now you can really get into the nuts and bolts of, hey coach, what I got to do to earn an offer. You know what I mean? Or can we set up can we go ahead and set up a visit? When's a good time for me to come up this season? You know what I mean, or this summer? It just moves it so much further ahead. But to Richie, I just wanted to hit on that before because that's what we teach our guys to do that kind of gets them ahead of the game. But if you are in the situation like Richie said, where none of that has happened, that is important. I was a big body language guy, still am. So that meant a lot to me. You know what I mean? And a guy looking me in the eye. When we were having a conversation. A firm handshake. If we were sitting down in the office, if he was sitting up on the edge of the chair, like lean forward, like engaged in the conversation, and not sitting over there in the coach's office because he had a comfortable chair, you know what I mean, and sitting there talking to me like that, like some teenagers do. And I'm not saying that's a terrible thing, but if you're in front of a college coach that you want to offer you a scholarship, it's not great. So stuff like that really mattered. And then, like when Richie was talking about have your tape ready to go, you know what I mean. A lot of times, like here's how coaches are, and I was the same way. If they think and this is with any conversation, but specifically if they come into your school with the spring evaluation period and you get a chance to get in front of them and you have your tape ready and all that stuff, and this is the first encounter, like you haven't talked to them, you know what I mean? Nothing has happened up to this point. Most of them, almost to the man, and I'd say 9 out of 10 of them, if they think you're asking questions like to actually get better as a player because they have a college coach in front of them and they want good feedback from them, 9 times out of 10, the icebreaker on them to get to watch the tape. Hey, coach, you got a couple minutes to watch my tape here? I just want to get your feedback on it. Some things I can do to get better. You know what I mean? This, that, and other. Versus, you know, if you're trying to show it to them to see if I'm talking about if this is the first encounter you've ever had, versus them, you saying, to see if there's any interest. You know what I'm saying? Well, they may not be able to decide that right on the spot, but if you're trying to ask them about just getting feedback on how they can get better, or how you can get better as a player, like specifics. Hey, I'd like to see you do this better on this play. You know what I mean? Or here's what you need to work on. You know what I mean? Or if you come to camp, you know what I mean? We'd like to see you run around at camp, or we want to see you drop in coverage. Because we don't get to see a lot of it on tape. That opens all kinds of doors. You know what I mean? And they're always more apt to coach you because they want to coach. They're
Right.
coaches, so now they feel like they're coaching you versus, you know what I'm saying, you just diving right in there. You know what I mean? So always keep that in mind. But that's why it's critical to have that tape ready. To Richie's point. And I'll be honest with you guys, I did it for a long time. That doesn't happen very much. Like it
Right.
doesn't. Like you meeting a guy for the first time and them having tape ready and asking you to watch it with them and get feedback. That does not have. I can count. I mean, it wasn't very many times. It was a very low
Yeah. Nobody
percentage that
does
that
though.
ever happened to me.
Nobody does.
You know what I mean? So, that is a difference maker sometimes, a hundred
Just
percent.
think about it too. Like, I mean, I just the reason I even came up with the strategy, or we came up with this strategy, is because players would get coaches that would come to their school and they get to unexpectedly meet with them, and then they would speak with them, and it was like trash. It was garbage. It's a 5 minutes. Whoa. It's a 5 minutes of a waste for the coach. It's a 5 minutes of a waste for the player, right? Cool.
Yeah, he did it because the coach. He did it because the head coach asked him to speak
And
to
he's
him.
like, you
That's
know
it.
what?
Yeah.
I like the kid. Okay, I gotta go see 4 other schools now. Bye. Like,
There you have
So,
it.
no, let's use that time. Always think in terms of the sales process. Always, right? Area coach, video views, phone call, visit, offer, right? It's what we teach. Everything, wherever you're at, if as long as you know the funnel and the sales process, wherever you're at, you can find out. You already know the area coach because he's there, right? That's your guy. So the next thing is you got to get them to watch your video. You can't skip to a call without the video, right? It doesn't make sense. So you're basically with them in person, consider that a call, whether it's in person or it's a phone call. It doesn't matter, same thing. That's the call. So we're skipping to the call without the video. So the call is a giant waste of time for you, for everybody involved. So during that time, it's, hey, coach, like, I'm so happy you're here. It's an honor to get the opportunity to work with you. Could we just take 90 seconds to watch my video, see if there's interest, and get some feedback? Boom, cool. We're watching it together. And then the coach is like, wow, like, I love that. I love that. Let's definitely continue this conversation. We're really interested. Cool, coach. And then you could firmly, confidently ask, cool, what's your cell phone number so I can give you a call and reach out and follow up? Boom. Get their cell phone number. Not, is it possible if I have your cell phone number? Or could I have your X handle and DM? Like, no, dude, you don't want to X handle and DM. That coach ain't DMing you back, bro. They're not, you know what I mean? Like, get the cell phone. Now, are they all going to say yes? No. But the more serious they are, the more they'll say yes, right? The more interested they are, the more they're going to say yes. The less interested, the more you're going to see them kind of push back and not be as excited and not give you their number. But at least you want to take advantage of the opportunity, right? And so this is a great way to do that. And then after you've spent, 90 seconds or so doing that, then you could get to know them and they can get to like you and you could really build that relationship and you can learn more about each other. And so it's just sales process, guys, whether you're at Walmart and you run into a coach or they're at your school or they're at your practice or you went to their school, always think in terms of sales process and where are we at in that sales process. That's how you know what to do next, right? And that's how you could take advantage of all of these coaches coming to your school and really making sure that you have that opportunity. Even at practice, even after practice, they're there. Go grab your device or your phone or whatever. Come back out, shake these coaches' hands. Who cares if you're outside at a fence? These coaches are hanging out. They could have 60 seconds to watch your first 4 plays or whatever. Use this opportunity, big time opportunity, versus you all know if you follow what we teach on doing outreach, and it takes a lot to get coaches to watch your video. If you've got 3 or 4 of them at your practice and you can go grab your phone after practice and meet with each one of them, do it. Don't be afraid. Go and do it. You got to do it.
Yeah. And then, one of the last things I'll say is, guys, just like I was talking about being cognizant of the people in the school, what I mean, that you're around. Like I told the story about the lunch lady and all that stuff. If they're coming to see you after school and you're practicing during spring practice or you're running a track meet, the same evaluation's going on there. Like how you interact with your teammates, how you interact with your coaches, all that's going on. Believe me, all that is going on. The way I
Yeah.
coach our guys is when a coach steps foot on your campus or when you step foot on theirs, the second that happens, you're being evaluated till the time they leave. I don't care what's going on. They are evaluating you in some form or fashion. And again, I beat this like a dead horse, but I cannot say it enough because it's come up way too many times. That is why I mentioned in the beginning about them taking a picture with you and sizing you up and things like that. Make sure that stuff is accurate on your X
Don't lie.
bio, on your huddle, all that stuff. If anything, undershoot it. All right, because that is a huge, huge red flag. All right, all the way down, and we talk about it at nauseum. But if we weren't talking about it, that means it's not happening. But it is happening because I see it every single week, especially with that 40 time. Okay, you better feel really, really comfortable about what you put up there. Okay, and I'm not saying they're going to take you out there, line you up on a line with a stopwatch and this, that, and other. But if they've watched enough football, they can go out there and watch you practice, or they can watch you run track, or they can watch you run around in the gym, or whatever it is, and have a pretty good idea of how accurate it is. Okay, just keep that in mind. That is a huge, huge piece of the evaluation too.
Absolutely. Hey, Brian, this was a really good topic. There's so much to it. Like, I feel like we can go in a million directions, like what questions to ask and all
Yeah.
that. But I think the key core concepts here were covered, and it's just a really important one, especially at this period of time. Like, take advantage of this opportunity, guys. Really, really important time. And this is why this is why I do what I do, right? A lot of people say what to do, but it's the role playing, it's the practicing, it's the coaching, it's the accountability to actually doing the things we're teaching, which is why we do what we do, right? And why we get to work with such great guys. And honestly, our first year, 83% of our guys got scholarships. This past year, 95% of our guys got scholarships. And it's because we're making the system better, right? But in reality, it's the kids that are doing it because of the coaching, the role playing, and the accountability to doing the things, right? A lot of kids go on YouTube and watch my YouTube videos on exactly what to do, but without the accountability, the coaching to making sure they're doing it right, and the accountability to actually doing it and doing it consistently, without that, you just have a bunch of kids saying they know what they're going to be doing and they don't do any of it, right? They don't go to the conversations. They don't do it the right way. And so, I feel like I'm pretty lucky to have the opportunity to do what I do. I know, Brian, you feel the same way. Like, we're in the other side of the table, and now you get to be on this side. So, Brian, any last words before we wrap this bad boy up?
No, I just hope some of this stuff helped. I always try to bring up stuff that maybe, guys don't think about or parents don't think about, just from having, a lot of experience doing it, and try to help as much as I can. So, hope some of this helped. And I think if you take some of it, and actually apply it, I think it can be beneficial for you.
Absolutely. Brian, I know you got a lot of guys on our team of coaches and everything that you're handling and running, so appreciate you being here, man. For all of you listening, I saw a stat. Only 21% of our listeners and viewers actually are subscribed to our YouTube channel. So if you like this content, we also post 2 other videos every single week, long form, another how-to type training video on Wednesday, and an evaluation every single Saturday. So if you are on YouTube, make sure to subscribe. It's just my name, Richie Contertesi. You can find our YouTube channel, subscribe there. Consider subscribing. And if you're watching this on Spotify or wherever else you listen to podcasts, definitely consider leaving us a review with a question that you want us to answer. That's how we can continue to come up with answer questions that you have, and keep this bad boy going, right? Because we want to continue to share content with you that helps you. So lastly here, if you have a son and you'd like to see if he meets the criteria for a professional evaluation, which is the first step in our application process to determine what level your son has the best chance of earning a scholarship in right now. We also will share what plays he needs to move around, and most importantly, what he needs to do to get to the next level. If you want to see if your son meets the criteria for that, then you could go to gonextplay.com and hit apply, and it's just the first step there. You book a quick call, and we'll see if he meets the criteria. Other than that, we appreciate you being here, and we look forward to seeing you on the next one. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Football Scholarship Podcast. If you enjoyed the show, make sure to subscribe and leave us a review. And for more free resources, or if you're interested in working with us, visit gonextplay.com. Until next time.